My son uninvited me from the wedding I paid for. They said I looked too poor, that I'd ruined the pictures. So I returned the favor. Subscribe to the channel and watch until the end, because this story doesn't end the way you think. My name is Henry. I'm 59 years old, and I've seen a lot in this life. I worked my whole life, every brick, every dime, built with the hands of someone who never had luxury, but always had dignity. And still, nothing could have prepared me for what happened that night. It was a regular Friday. Thomas, my only son, showed up with his fiancée, Isabel, both dressed to the nines, smelling like expensive perfume, wearing clothes that spoke louder than they did. They sat across from me like they were about to ask for something big, pretending it was just a casual family visit. But I could feel it. There was tension in the air, smiles hiding something else. Thomas started explaining how the wedding was approaching and how the costs had spiraled out of control. He talked about the dream buffet, the decorations Isabel had imagined since she was a kid, and the venue they had already booked. He said her parents couldn't chip in, things were tight on their end. And then, no sugarcoating, Dad, we won't be able to pull this off without your help. Isabel barely said a word, arms crossed, hair tucked behind her ear, eyes locked on mine like she already knew what I'd say. I looked at both of them, let the silence stretch for a moment, then asked, how much exactly are we talking about? Thomas hesitated, then threw out a number that made my eyebrows twitch. He said it like he expected me to say no, but you could still hear the hope in his voice. And I said yes. I said I'd help. I figured out. I'll make it happen. Because I still believe that being a father means holding up the sky when your kids aren't strong enough yet. Even if it means swallowing your pride. Even if the price is too steep. The next morning, I started making payments. First installment for the catering, then the decor, the venue, the musicians, the photographers, even the invitation company. Every bill, every receipt paid on time. Money flying out of my account straight into their dream. With each transfer, Thomas sent a quick, emotionless thanks, Dad. Isabel rarely addressed me directly. Always distant. Cold, but polite, too polite. The kind of politeness that feels more like armor than kindness. I told myself it was just wedding nerves. Try not to take it personally. A few days later, Thomas called. He actually sounded touched. He said, Dad, I want you to know there's going to be a special moment at the ceremony just for you. I insisted. My chest swelled. Eyes welled up just at the thought. I imagined the applause. Him stepping up to the mic and saying, none of this would have been possible without my father. And for a moment, it felt worth it. Every dollar, every sacrifice, every late night worry. I kept paying. Every last detail. Imported tablecloths. Fancy lighting. Desserts with French names I couldn't even pronounce. Anything to make that day perfect. It was more than I could afford comfortably. But I saw in him a version of myself. Young, full of plans, just needing a little push. And I pushed. Without hesitation. What I didn't know was that I wouldn't be part of that day. I didn't know I was funding my own humiliation. But I was about to find out. And when I did, I didn't scream. I just took a deep breath and started crossing names off the list. It was supposed to be a quick stop. I'd forgotten my wallet at Thomas's place after dropping off some paperwork for the wedding planner. It was late, but he told me himself they'd be up, going over floral arrangements and lighting details with Isabel. I parked slowly outside. The front gate was slightly open. I walked through the yard quietly, ready to knock, apologize for the hour, and grab what was mine. But as I got close, I heard it. Laughter, but not the kind that comes from joy. Not two lovebirds planning their big day. This was different. Sharp. Poisoned. The kind of laugh you feel in your spine before your brain catches up. I froze. Stayed quiet. And then the voices got clearer. It was Isabel, and she was speaking with a kind of cold ease that made my blood run cold. Your dad just looks poor. If he shows up in the pictures, it'll look like we're hosting a charity wedding. My heart clenched. I stood still. Before I could even react, Thomas answered, laughing. I already told you. We'll uninvite him. He won't even notice. We'll make it sound like a logistics issue. That was the moment, standing there on their porch, when my hand started to shake. But it wasn't anger. It was disbelief. Like the whole world had gone silent except for those words. I pulled out my phone and hit record. If this was a nightmare, I needed proof it was real. And what came next was worse. They talked about how I dressed, the way I talked, my old car. Isabel threw in another gem. Would be a shame if the groom's dad looked like the gardener. And Thomas laughed again, like it was nothing, like it didn't sting, like I was just some unwanted prop in the scene they were setting. I stood there listening, recording, feeling each word hit me like cold stone. And in that pause between one laugh and the next, something in me died, and something else woke up. I got back in my car without saying a word. Didn't even try to get the wallet. Just started the engine and drove off. For 30 minutes, I didn't have a destination. Just a mind full of noise and somehow completely blank. Maybe you felt it too. That moment when you realize you're not part of the family you thought you had. When the love you gave gets weaponized against you. I got home without remembering how. Sat on the couch, phone in hand, and hit play. Listened to it all again. Every word, every laugh. And I asked myself, where did I go wrong? I gave everything. Love, money, time. And in return, I was reduced to a look. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at old photos, read old texts, replayed promises. Pride turned to knots. Love turned to silence. But when the sun came up, the silence turned to clarity. And with it, a plan they'd never see coming. Because I wasn't going to argue. I was going to answer with elegance and precision. The next morning, I was up before the sun. My coffee tasted bitter. Maybe it was just the truth still stuck in my throat. I sat at the table with a folder I'd kept tucked away in the back of my closet. Contracts, receipts, contact lists. The entire backbone of the wedding built by me. I picked up a pen, opened the first page, and got to work. The buffet came first. I called the manager and didn't waste a second. I'd like to cancel the service. I'll cover the penalty. Just send me the confirmation by email. There was a long pause, then a quiet attempt to ask why. I didn't offer an explanation. I didn't know one. Next came the photographers, the musicians, the planner, the transportation company, the photo booth. One by one, I crossed them off. Every call was a line drawn across a chapter one, was closing with purpose. And with each cancellation, I said the same thing. Please, total discretion. Don't tell anyone. They agreed, because I'd paid in full, up front, even the late cancellation fees. Money was never the issue, and they didn't need to know that. Not Thomas, not Isabel, not even my ex-wife. To them, I was just a man with the old car, the wrinkled shirt, the tired eyes. What they never realized was that this same man was holding up every inch of that wedding. And if I wanted to, all it took was the snap of a finger. I left the decorations alone. The flowers, the tables, the golden name sign, untouched. Because what makes a celebration isn't what's printed on the wallpaper. It's what lives inside it. And that, I erased with the tip of a pen. In the days that followed, Thomas texted me, wanting to go over final details. I didn't answer. Isabel messaged too. Short, cold. We need to confirm the DJ's schedule. I pretended I hadn't seen it. Silence became my ally. Every minute they thought they had things under control was another step into the hole they dug with their own words. Maybe you think I should have confronted them, raised my voice, demanded respect. But no, because that morning, for the first time, I wasn't acting as the father. I was acting as what was fair. The big day finally arrived. And ironically, the sun was shining like it was in on the joke. The venue looked stunning. Floral arrangements matched the ribbons on the chairs. A mirrored aisle reflected the couple's names in golden letters. It was, without exaggeration, the wedding of their dreams, at least on paper. Isabel was snapping selfies with her bouquet, checking angles like she was in the middle of a photo shoot. Thomas was smiling at everyone, adjusting his tie like a man who thinks he's in control. Guests were arriving little by little, dressed to impress, phones in hand, ready to capture every detail and post it like they were at the social event of the year. From the outside, it looked flawless, but inside the cracks were already showing. Minutes passed, and the absences began to show. First, the photographer. He was supposed to be there early, capturing the bride, getting ready, the fine details of the venue, the raw emotion behind the scenes. Nothing. One of the groomsmen joked. Maybe he got lost. A few minutes later, someone else asked, "Wait, there's no music? Where's the background track?" No violin. No speakers. No ambient sound. Just the uncomfortable murmur of guests slowly realizing something wasn't right. The missing pieces turned into tension. The tension turned into whispers. And the whispers turned into full-blown awkwardness. The table for the hors d'oeuvres and sweets was set, but empty. Just a white cloth stretched across it, and a few decorative flowers pretending nothing was missing. But everything was missing. Isabel started to sweat, even with the AC blasting. She wiped her arms, trying to play it cool. She leaned toward Thomas, whispering, "Where is everyone?" He started making calls. First the photographer, then the DJ, then the caterer. Every number went straight to voicemail. You know that moment when the makeup starts to melt, and with it, the image you worked so hard to keep together? That's what I imagined, even though I wasn't there. Thomas's expression started to shift, from confident to nervous, then from nervous to panicked. He paced with the phone glued to his ear, but no one answered. No callbacks, no explanations. The only one who showed up was the officiant, a kind old man who did his part with grace. He called everyone to attention, asked for silence, led them through the vows, blessed the rings, and ended with the classic line, "You may kiss the bride." But this time, the silence after the kiss was louder than any music could have been. There was applause, but it was soft, polite, the kind that says, "We're still waiting for the real party to start." But it wouldn't. Isabel clutched her bouquet like it was the only real thing left. Thomas looked around, searching for answers. But everyone else already understood. There was no music, no dessert, no dinner, no cake, no party, just a beautiful shell wrapped around a void. A wedding that tasted like abandonment. Thomas left the ceremony like a man running from fire. Guests were still standing, some quietly slipping away, others stuck in place, trying to figure out if this was a cruel prank or just a complete disaster. Isabel stayed behind, frozen, her face flushed, stuck between stares and whispers already making the rounds like wildfire. Thomas stormed through the hall and shoved open the side door. He grabbed his phone like he was about to fix everything with one call. Try the photographer. Nothing. Call the caterer. Straight to voicemail. DJ, florist, wedding planner, all unreachable or just not picking up. Sweat was dripping down his forehead. His fingers were shaking. One of the groomsmen walked over with a glass of water and an awkward half-smile. "Man, I thought your dad was handling everything. I saw him signing with the catering team last week." Thomas froze. Silence. His eyes drifted out of focus, and in that split second, the truth started to sink in. Without a word, he pulled out his phone again and called my number. Once, twice, 3 times. No answer. Then a message. "Dad, did you cancel everything? What the hell is going on?" Still nothing. Until finally, a single message came through. Just one audio file. No caption. No explanation. Thomas hesitated for a moment before hitting play. Isabel's voice came through first, clear, cold, almost smug. "Your dad looks poor. If he's in the pictures, people will think this was a charity wedding." Then came his own laugh. And his voice. "I told you. We'll just uninvite him. He won't even notice." More laughter. Then silence. The audio ended, but the damage didn't. Thomas stood there, phone in hand, staring at the screen like time had just stopped. A light breeze moved through the side hallway. And for the first time in months, he had nothing to say. No excuses. No quick fix. No comeback. Because the truth was simple. His father didn't show up at the wedding. Because he didn't have to. He had already won. The phone rang early the next morning. I was expecting it. On the other end, my ex-wife's voice came through, dripping with fury. "Henry, what did you do? You ruined your own son's wedding." No good morning. No pause. Just pure blame, like always. I let her finish yelling. Then I answered, as calmly as I could. "You erased me first. I just stepped out of the picture you already cropped me out of." She went silent for a second, then came back even louder. "You have no idea the scandal you caused. I'm telling your sister, your whole family, the church. Everyone's going to know what kind of man you really are." This time, I didn't argue. I just opened the folder on my phone and sent her the payment receipts, one by one. Years of alimony. Month after month. Paid without fail. even after the divorce, even while being treated like a burden, even after hearing from her that I was a loser. Once I saw she'd read them, I sent one more message. You live off me and still treat me like garbage. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. She always knew she relied on me. She just liked pretending she didn't. Loved putting on a show, acting like the classy woman who made it all on her own. But now, the mask had slipped. Not long after, I got a voice message. It was Isabel. Her voice was shaking. Mr. Henry, how could you do this? We were in shock. You humiliated us in front of everyone. That was cruel. She was crying by the end, like she was the one who'd been wronged. Like what they did to me was just a small misunderstanding. I listened all the way through, took a deep breath, and sent back just one sentence. I only mirrored what you did. No speech, no drama. Conversation over. Even after the public humiliation, they went on the trip. The honeymoon was still on, courtesy of Isabel's in-laws, who hadn't chipped in for the wedding, but made sure to pay for the resort. Gotta keep up appearances. It was a high-end international getaway. All-inclusive. Ocean view. Champagne on arrival. Rose petals on the bed. But not even paradise can sweeten the taste of a wedding that collapsed before the first dance. Thomas tried to act like nothing happened. Posted smiling photos, captions like, "Moments we'll treasure forever," pretending the internet hadn't already seen the disaster unfold. But the pictures told a different story. The smile never reached his eyes. Even with filters, the tension on his face was clear. Isabel, on the other hand, didn't even pretend. She got colder by the day, barely spoke, slept more than she talked, sighed loudly, rolled her eyes. And when she did say something, it was sharp. You should have seen this coming. Your dad played you. Now everyone's going to remember me as the girl from the wedding disaster. Thomas tried to defend himself, said he had no idea what his dad was planning, that he was honest, that he didn't deserve this. But Isabel had made up her mind. This was his fault. And now she was married to a man not even his own family respected. The mood between them turned into a silent war. The kind of silence that fills the room louder than any shouting ever could. And even with paradise outside, inside it was already winter. When they came back, they still tried to play it cool. Posted one last photo at the airport, holding shopping bags. Caption, "The start of our next chapter." But nobody was buying it. Friends whispered. Family talked in half sentences. Their names became shorthand for disaster. No filter could bury that kind of shame. And Thomas knew it. The humiliation wasn't over, because there was still one last piece. A gift he thought was guaranteed. A key that would open no door. And a truth he wasn't ready to face. The week after the honeymoon, Thomas and Isabel packed their bags in a rush. It was the official start of married life, and they could hardly wait to move in. The apartment was modern. Large balcony, city view, high-end finishings. One of the last investments I made years ago. Thomas knew it was mine, and before everything happened, I'd told him it would be a gift. It was meant to be a symbol, a fresh start, the right step into adulthood. At least, that's what he thought. They arrived smiling. Thomas wheeled the bags in like he wanted the whole world to see. Isabel wore sunglasses, and that look people wear when they think they're above judgment. The doorman saw them and stood up, eyebrows tight. "Sorry, you're not authorized to enter." Thomas laughed, thinking it was a joke. "What do you mean? This is our apartment. Unit 503. The doorman didn't flinch. "I suggest you speak with the building manager." A few minutes later, the manager showed up, polite but firm. He checked the system, confirmed the info, and said it plain and clear. "This unit belongs to Mr. Henry." Thomas froze for a second, then exploded. But he was going to give it to me. He said it was ours. That was the plan. The manager didn't blink. But he canceled the transfer and rented the place out yesterday. New tenants are moving in on Friday. Everything's official. Isabel's expression shattered. The pose vanished. Her purse slipped off her shoulder. "This is a nightmare," she shouted. "You lost everything. You're a failure, Thomas." And this time, he didn't argue. He just lowered his head. No home, no wedding, no father. They stood there for a while, not knowing where to go. The building that was supposed to mark a new beginning had become just another reminder of everything they threw away. And Thomas, the man who thought he could step all over the one who laid his foundation, finally learned what it means to destroy the very hands that raised you. The park was empty that morning. Clear sky, a soft breeze, and the birds sounded louder than usual, or maybe it was just the quiet inside me finally settling down. I walked slowly along the gravel path, hands in my pockets, steady steps, no rush. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't chasing anyone. Not approval, not validation. I was just walking. I passed a young couple sitting on a bench. They were laughing at something silly, completely lost in their own world. I watched them for a moment, and a small smile almost formed. Not envy, not even longing, just a soft reminder that life moves on, even when parts of us get left behind. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and looked at the screen. Thomas. The name felt heavier now, not like a son, more like someone who had drifted away by choice. I stood still for a few seconds, just staring, wondering if I should pick up, if it was regret, if maybe, just maybe, there's still time. But then, with a quiet tap, I declined the call, slipped the phone back in my pocket, looked up at the sky, took a deep breath, and for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. There was no grand speech, no moral to teach, no handwritten letter, because sometimes silence is the only answer you need.